6時ぐらいまで、彼らはマスタリングをしていて、完成後ホテルでちょっと横になっただけで午前中私のために、Q プライムにやってきて、出来たてほかほかのニューアルバムについて語ってくれました。それがいよいよユニバーサルが発売になる、メタリカのメタリカリマスター版デラックスエディションボックスセット。メタリカがメタリカというジャンルを確立した最強のアルバムについてラーズが語ります。
ハーモニーの部分に特にそういうのがあるのかもしれないけど、今までのメタリカと違って優しさとかね、それからなんかこうなんていうのかな、やっぱり優しさみたいなのが出てるような気がするんだけど、その辺どうですか？
Yeah, I think it's a lot more of an emotional record. I think, you know, we're 3 years older now than we were when we did the last album, and I think that just there comes a point when you start taking your guard down and letting some of these things out a little more. I think that was especially with the vocals and with Bob Rock. He really brought some things out of James that I think James had not felt comfortable about letting out before, and I think he finally, it was just the right time for some of these things to come out. So I think when I hear the album, it's a lot more of an emotional album, both in the subtle ways, but also when it's angrier, it's also more angry than our records have been before. And some of the songs like Holier Than Thou or The Struggle Within are, it's just a much more emotional album. I think when I hear Justice now, it was a lot more cold, void of emotion. So yeah, I'm agreeing.
前ドイツで会った時にニューアルバムは割とこのグルーヴを出したいっていうふうに言ってたんだけど、僕聞いた感じはね、とにかく一曲一曲がその独立したグルーヴを持ってるね。これがすごい。
Well, you know, we'll try. Yeah, I mean, it's like I told you, I think last year it was just something that I wanted to experiment with. I was getting a little bored with my drumming over the last couple of years in the direction it was going, and it felt time to try some new things drum-wise, some new things that were challenging. And what was challenging was to try and simplify things and try and lay the drums back a little bit. And what was not challenging was to keep doing the same thing that I've been doing for the last few years, which is just play all over the place and maybe, you know, drum fills and time changes and all that. So I think I finally realized that getting the drums to swing and to groove and to bounce and stuff like that is not something that is that as easy as you think it is. And it's just something that was a lot of fun to try and deal with and to master. And I feel that even though I might not have mastered it yet, I'm definitely feeling good about what I wanted to do. And when I hear the record now, the things that I wanted to do, I've definitely accomplished as far as my contribution to the overall sound with where I put the drums and stuff like that. Because there's a very fine line between playing simple and because a lot of it's not that difficult to play simple, you know, just not do much, but it has to have that swing, and that's why it just, now I started realizing the art of that, to use your word earlier. And, you know, so people like Charlie Watts and Phil Rudd from AC/DC and people like that, I finally now realize the art of getting the drums to swing, and I'm trying my best to keep up with them.
なるほどね。アルバムカバーを見せてもらいましたけども、黒でメタリカのロゴが入って非常にシンプルな、今までのアルバムで一番シンプルじゃないかと思うんですけど、これってのはどういうところから、しかもアルバムタイトルはメタリカだって話も聞いたんですけど、この辺の話をちょっと聞かせてくれます？
It was not really so much of coming up with the idea as basically taking every other idea and throwing them away and then being left with this. If you know what I mean. It really just is, it's a reflection on the fact of as usual with Metallica, when we look around and see what everybody else is doing, that we a lot of times just interpret that in our own way and then try and be as different from that as possible. This time around, it seemed that the way to go against the grain as much as possible when it came to titles and album sleeve and so forth was to just minimize it as much as possible. It originally was not even going to have a logo or a title. It was just going to be like black. But it just, I don't know. I think that there comes a point where you can take these ideas just one step too far, where it becomes so novel that it just doesn't really do anybody any good. And so I think we kind of sat there and said, well, wait a minute, it should have a Metallica logo on it because it's a Metallica record. So we put a Metallica logo on it, and we looked at it and said, yeah, that's enough. And with the title, like I said earlier, it's not so much that the title of the new album is Metallica, and this is the idea. It's more so that there is no title, and since there's a Metallica logo on the sleeve, then I guess the album's called Metallica kind of by default or something. You know what I mean? So it's just really a reaction to a lot of other things around us in heavy metal cartoon land, and just wanting to get away from that and play it down as much as possible. And I think also probably a little bit to try and here's the record, but since there's not really anything to look at, you pay attention to the music right away instead of sitting, oh yeah, the Metallica album, for half an hour, and then the music's blaring away and you don't really hear any of the music. So I think it's just a reflection to just trying to, here's 65 minutes of music and you don't really need anything else. I think if you look back on in the early 70s and stuff like that, there was just like, there was a sleeve and that was it. There was not, I think it's great to a degree to have all these things, but there just comes a point where it just maybe is a little too much. And for right now, for 1991, it just felt like that we didn't really need anything else. And maybe next time we'll go back to big drawings and Pusshead and all this stuff again. But for now, for the mode, for the mental state of mind right now, it just feels right to just not really have anything.
前はみんなと同じようなビデオクリップ作りたくないというふうなことをおっしゃってましたけど、その考え方は今も変わらないと思うんですけども、今度のアルバムからもビデオクリップをお作りになるつもりですか？そしたらどういうアイデアを入れたいと思っていますか
？It's not so if we're going to make it, because we already did one last week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yes. It just feels, again, not to repeat myself every time, but it just feels like it's time to have some fun with the medium of video. And I think, I have mixed emotions about Metallica and videos now, because when I look back over the last 6-8 years, one part of me says it was great that we didn't do videos because that was what we believed in, and we felt that we didn't want to cater to the same music business requirements that everybody else had been catering to and so on. But another side of me wants to say that I wish we would have done some videos before, because when we did the one video, it kind of, I think, just finally made us realize that it was okay to do videos as long as you treated them in the same way that you, for instance, treat your records, which is that you have 100% total control. You treat it as another way of getting some creative stuff out of you and so on, and just stop being I think basically what happened is that we stopped being afraid of videos. And so for this record, I think you're going to see a lot more videos, because I think there's just like a desire now to, I mean, how many people can you talk to who've been in a band 10 years, who have 5 albums out, who've only done one video? So I think we just feel that it's time to deal with this thing a little more. I think we feel comfortable about dealing with it a little more now, and we shot a video last week for the first single off the album, which is Enter Sandman, and I haven't seen it yet, but the ideas that came forth in that video were interesting. And I mean, in 1991, I think it's pretty much impossible to make a video where you sit down and go, wow, this is really unique and completely different. I think we hit upon that with one video, but we don't want to repeat what we've done before. And so if we don't want to repeat what we've done before, there's not really that many choices left, and where you just say, this is something nobody's ever done before. So instead of forcing yourself to think like that right now it's just like, let's just make some videos that we like, that we feel comfortable with, that are as much Metallica in its own set ways as anything else that we deal with. And so we're doing that.